Jaya Gopi Jana Bhala Bhagiri Bhara Dhare Jashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tirabhanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantharash Shiman Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonon, Chapter 89, Krishna and Arjuna retrieves a Brahmana's son, text 42 to 46. Text 42. Evam shapati viprarshau vidyam asthaya palguna jajau samya manin ashu jatraste bhagavan jama evam shapati viprarshau vidyan asthaya falguna jajau samya manin ashu jatraste bhagavan jama evam shapati viprarsau vidyam asthaya falguna jajau samya manin ashu jatraste bhagavan jama. Please chant. Evam shapati viprarsau vidyam asthaya falguna jajau samya manin asu jatraste bhagavan jama. Evam shapati viprarsau vidyan asthaya falguna Yayau samyamanin ashu yatraste bhagavan jama evam sapati viprarsau vidyam asthaya phalguna yayau samyamanin ashu yatraste bhagavan jama evam sapati viprarsau vidyan asthaya phalguna Jajau samyamanin ashu yatraste bhagavan jama evam. Thus Sapati, as he cursed him, Viprarsau, the wise Brahmana, Vidyam, a mystic incantation, Asthaya, resorting to Falgunaha, Arjuna, Yayau, when Samyamanim, to the heavenly city Samyamani, Ashu, immediately, Yatra, where, Ashte, leaves, Bhagavan Jamaha, Lord Yamaraj. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. While the wise Brahmana continued to heap insults upon him, Arjuna employed a mystic incantation to go at once to Samyamani, the city of heaven where Lord Yamaraj resides. Text 43 and 44, translation. Not seeing the Brahmana's child there, Arjuna went to the cities of Agni, Niriti, Soma, Vayu, and Varuna. With weapons at the ready, he searched throughout all the domains of the universe, from the bottom of the subterranean region to the roof of heaven. Finally, not having found the Brahmana's son anywhere, Arjuna decided to enter the sacred fire, having failed to keep his promise. But just as he was about to do so, Lord Krishna stopped him and spoke the following words, purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments that Arjuna trusted Lord Shiva implicitly as his guru, and so he did not bother to search out Lord Shiva's celestial abode. Text number 45, translation. Lord Krishna said, I will show you the Brahmana's son, so please don't despise yourself like this. This same man who now criticizes us will soon establish our spotless fame. Text number 46, translation. Having thus advised Arjuna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead had Arjuna join him in his divine chariot, and together they set off toward the west. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhuttale Shimate Romapada Swami Iti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhuttale Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Shatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Yesterday, we established during the class given by Krishna Archana Prabhu and also during the discussion that the issue or the possibly the most important issue that we can at least from the understanding of as we discuss. I mean, there's always more and more and more substance, spiritual, transcendental substance that we can take from each one of these verses that describe the glories of Krishna. Is unlimited, but at least we could recognize something that was very, very important, a theme that was very important to understand. And that was that when we become afflicted by material condition, then we disconnect from Krishna. And disconnecting from Krishna means that then one becomes forgetful of Krishna's position and our relationship with Him. And that's the predicament, or that's the actual situation of conditioned souls in the material world. That's the condition of ignorance. Immediately, as we enter and we come in contact with material energy, with the material potency, we become covered by ignorance. Ignorance means forgetfulness about Krishna. So in this situation, yesterday we recognized in the discussion that these two personalities who are being, that are part of this narration, of this pastime, the Brahmana and Arjuna, in different ways, they have disconnected from Krishna, although they are associated with Krishna. The Brahmana is a Dwarkavasi, is an inhabitant of the holy place of Dwarka, in which all these personalities, they're associates, they're in constant association, not only with Krishna, but also with Lord Balaram and with Krishna's expansions, like Pradyumna and Aniruddha, and all the different sons of Krishna. They're in association with Vasudeva, they're in association with the goddess of fortune, Rukmini, and Satyabhama, and all the queens of the main queens, and all the queens of Lord Krishna. And in despite of that, this Brahmana appears to be overwhelmed by this the attachment, or the trauma, the suffering of the son's death, all his different sons. And in that mood, covered by the ignorance of who Krishna is, you start to commit all these different activities, offenses. So the Brahmana starts to curse Maharaj Ugrasena. By cursing Maharaj Ugrasena, automatically he's also insulting Krishna and Balaram. Is implied. Also, it's not said in the narration that he's insulting directly Krishna and Balaram. How you say, in a not direct, indirectly, he is doing. In fact, he said, all these Kshatriyas, what is all with these old Kshatriyas here in Dwarka? So you not necessarily say, well, what's the matter with Krishna and with Balaram and with Aniruddha and Pradumya? But they're the Kshatriyas. They're the main Kshatriyas of the kingdom of Dwarka. He's saying they're all useless. They're not Kshatriyas. They can be Kshatriyas because Brahmanas, me as a Brahmana, should not suffer where Kshatriyas are present, real Kshatriyas. So this Brahmana is described here as Vipra, which means a learned Brahmana. This is not just an ordinary, like they call here a Karen, in modern terms. A Karen, they describe a person who is a complainer, a very absorbed, self-absorbed person that have this sense of what is the word that is used when you deserve entitlement, and therefore you have to scream at the world if someone, disturb your reality in some way or you perceive that. This is not the case with this Brahmana. This is a learned Brahmana. It's a learned Brahmana. And as a learned Brahmana, the Brahmana is pointing out things according to the laws of religion. Dharma. He's not ignorant of Dharma. He's learned. He's Vipra. So everything he said is rooted in the laws of Dharma. It is true that when you have real Kshatriyas who are performing Kshatriya Dharma, these things should not happen. We hear that with the ideal examples of Kshatriya Dharma, the highest examples of Kshatriya Dharma that are described in the scriptures. In the Bhagavatam, we have Krishna's Shaktavesha avatar Prithu Maharaj, who is empowered with the Shakti of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to rule. And it's described during the kingdom of Maharaj Prithu, there was not untimely death for anyone. The earth supplies plenty. Everybody was flourishing. We hear the same during the reign of Lord Ramachandra, who is the Supreme Personality himself, Vishnu Tattva, who comes to show again the perfect king. And even among devotees, we hear the narration of the kingdom of Maharaj Yudhisthira. I mean, people won't die unless they desire to die or something like that. Anyway, it was is the capacity of a perfect king, of a Kshatriya, who rules by perfect Kshatriya dharma, creates all auspiciousness for everyone. So there is no traumatic events. There's nothing like that. So this Brahmana is speaking the truth. The Brahmana is learned and he's saying this thing. So now, the moment that the Brahmana, due to being identified with a material situation, disconnect from Krishna, then all that learning is mayaya aprahita jnana. All that learning is stolen by illusion. You lose, you disconnect with Krishna, you forget Krishna. What happens when we forget Krishna? Well, let's put it the other way. When we remember Krishna, when the devotee remembers Krishna, you know that everything that happens to you is Krishna's arrangement to bring you closer. So we know examples. One of the top examples of someone who understands that even calamities are orchestrated by Krishna to bring you closer. And one of the greatest examples in the scripture is the prayers of Queen Kunti, who famously prayed for more of that calamities. Because when she and her sons find themselves amidst those calamities, they become closer to Krishna. So that's a devotee who doesn't to maintain that connection. When that connection is not disrupted, you understand Krishna's hand. Krishna's hand is behind everything. When you disconnect, then now we have to experience bewilderment. We have to experience all these emotions that have to do fear, anger, anxiety, all these things becomes, a reaction of that disconnection. And that disconnection is rooted again in ignorance. And ignorance is defined as we are identifying with matter, with our material nature. So that's the Brahmana. The Brahmana loses that connection, and therefore, instead of like Queen Kunti or Prahlad Maharaj or so many of the examples that are there, that are situated in this situation, that are placed in these situations of great peril, that they remain focused in their connection with Krishna. And they, even going through all these difficulties, they understand. They don't lose that. So the Brahmana disconnects from Krishna and then goes into this situation of blaming, insulting, blaspheming, not only Krishna and Balaram, Pradumya and Aniruddha, but also Krishna's devotees. Ugrasena, King Ugrasena, and some of the other devotees. Specifically is mentioned King Ugrasena. Now, Arjuna. Arjuna is an eternal associate of the Lord. And there's no question for Arjuna to ever disconnect from Krishna. We know that. But we also know that in many situations, Arjuna also appears to be disconnecting too. Appears to be. Example, the time of the Bhagavad Gita. At the beginning of the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna seems to lose that connection and become completely bewildered by the material circumstance. And in that bewilderment, he was just about to disregard the part that he have to play in fulfilling Krishna's will. So Arjuna, in this situation, he also disconnected. How he disconnected? It's very interesting. So let's look at the situation. Because what is happening, Arjuna comes into into the middle of this very intense, let's call it drama in one sense. Because as Arjuna was visiting, it happens to be that one of the moments in which one of these children died. So he witnessed the Brahmana insulting, again, for the 8th time, the Brahmana coming and making his case of how everybody is failing him. And there's no Kshatriya here. He's presenting that. Arjuna, he hears that. Now, the character of Arjuna, the character Krishna Archana mentioned yesterday, the natural character of a Kshatriya. Someone is in distress, the natural position of a Kshatriya is, I need to protect you. Kshatriya means to protect. Kshatriya comes from the word atraya. Atraya means to protect. So in the nature of the Kshatriya, I will protect. I will protect you. And so that nature goes and he feels for that Brahmana. However, on the other hand, the Brahmana is insulting not only King Ugrasena, but indirectly is insulting Krishna. So he's insulting Krishna's devotee and he's blaspheming also Krishna and Balaram. Now Arjuna, as a devotee, automatically you can tolerate things towards yourself. It is explained that a devotee have this type of tolerance for insults towards yourself. But one thing that devotee cannot tolerate is when Krishna is being blasphemed or Krishna's devotees are being blasphemed. So Arjuna, in this moment of going along with his nature of a Kshatriya, of protecting, disconnects from this reality. And I think yesterday was read that one of the reasons is that Arjuna also was disconnecting with Krishna, because one of the things yesterday was mentioned also, the verse in which, Avajananti man mudha, that regular people disregard Krishna because they don't understand Krishna's supremacy. In the case of Arjuna, he is explained that he's seeing Krishna as a friend. As a friend, you have an equal. You start to disconnect in one sense when you see Krishna as an equal. But it's important for us to understand that for these pure devotees, the disconnecting from Krishna is controlled by what? By Yoga Maya. So in Yoga Maya, the friends of Krishna, they don't see Krishna as a supreme. They see Krishna as their friend, as their equal. So they can wrestle with Krishna. They can, sit down with Krishna. Arjuna says that, I'm sitting with you, we're sitting in bed, we're joking, we're poking at each other, like that. So we see as equals. So in Arjuna's case, that disconnect is not the same type of disconnect. But nevertheless, we're talking here about that disconnect. When that disconnect happened, then Arjuna goes with his natural propensity of protecting, neglecting to act in the situation in which Krishna is being questioned and, in one sense, blasphemed indirectly. But it's like people say, it's the 10,000 pound gorilla in the room. You blaming, it's like blaming the whatever, the temple commander, but at the same time, who is responsible for everything arranged, the temple president or things like that, or you blaming the devotee who's cleaning. But then, so at the end, you insulting, you saying, the incapacity that Krishna has to protect. You question that. Although the Brahmana, and you see how this disconnect happened, the Brahmana was aware when Arjuna failed, then the Brahmana point out this useless liar, and not only that, he had the audacity to actually come up and claim and brag that he can protect when Krishna, Balaram, Pradumya, and Anuruddha were not able to protect. So the whole thing is just not right. The whole thing is just the whole noise that happens when there is disconnect from Krishna. All these different conflicts that happens, and sometimes we experience that in the spiritual communities, in our temple communities, and like that you have moments in which there's conflict among devotees and there's all this drama happening. Where is that coming from? Well, we learn is disconnect. With disconnecting. And it takes two to party, two to tango. Both parties are disconnecting when you have this drama. The ones that remains connected, they're transcendental. You know, we were just recently listening to the ninth canto, in which there's a narration of Vamanadev, the pastimes of Lord Vamanadev. And there is this huge drama happening between King Vali and Sukracharya. And Sukracharya is cursing and threatening and like that, and Bali Maharaj is, conflicted and this and all that. Meanwhile, it is described that Lord Vamanadev, in the pastime of a Brahmana, he's sitting very peacefully, hearing the whole thing, completely transcendental. So that's an example of someone who is fully transcendental. The Lord Krishna narrates, that type of say in the position of Arjuna. Arjuna have this situation in which he naturally acted according to his nature, disconnect from Krishna, and took shelter of Lord Shiva and his strength, the confidence that he had on his capacity to protect like a Kshatriya, to act like a Kshatriya. And he went as far as not only that, but it was so confident that actually, if I fail, I commit suicide. I kill myself. So there's no question of failure here. And it's not the first time that Arjuna does that. We know that. It's not the first time that Arjuna makes a vow like that. There was one during the Kurukshetra battle that he also made a vow that if he doesn't kill Jayadrath, who was the main cause of the death of Arjuna's son, Abhimanyu, if he doesn't kill Jayadrath, he will commit suicide. And that was basically an impossible task. Because the Kurus, when they hear that, they say, oh, so the only thing that we have to do is make sure that Arjuna never reaches Jayadrath. So they did everything to put Jayadrath, completely. So they put the whole force of the Kurus. They were simply there to protect Jayadrath. So Arjuna was basically about to fail. And just at the last moment, and Krishna was telling you, how do you make these vows? Are you, is it responsible to make those vows? You know what you... And Arjuna, no, this is his Kshatriya thing. He have to go through. He have to go through. And at the end, Krishna have to protect him, have to save him. So he did the trick of creating an illusion that the day was finished. And then he covers the sun. So then at that time, the Kuru thought, oh, we succeeded. The end of the day came. Arjuna was not able to kill Jayadrath. And then he had to commit suicide because he cannot, disregard his vows. He will do that. And then they're starting to celebrate. Jayadras came celebrating and started to taunt Arjuna. And then, poof, Krishna make the sun appear again. That the still was, the sun hasn't set. And then told Arjuna, kill him now. So we know the story goes like that. So it's not the first time that Arjuna make this thing of making these vows of committing suicide. And so another important lesson is that Krishna is always ready to protect his devotees' word. His devotees' promise never fail. We know that from the Bhagavad Gita, right? Remember in the 9th chapter, Krishna says to Arjuna that you declare, because when you declare, that is known to the world, kunteya pratijanihi, name bhaktya pranashati, that the words of my devotees will never, it's a promise, it's Krishna's vow. The words of his devotees are never in vain. They're never in vain. They're always truth. Krishna's word, you may question. Krishna is described as Tribhanga Lalitam, three bending. So it's crooked. Devotees make, the acharyas tell us this type of analogy. That Krishna is very tricky. Sometimes he says this, but he may say, he may not follow that or things like that. So some people may say, oh, we cannot, Krishna may trick you. But if a devotee declares, then the devotee's word never fail. They always have to be truth. And Krishna protects that. So the promise of the devotee, Krishna will actually, even if he have to compromise his own vows, Krishna will protect. The great example that Bhishmadev was remembered at the time of his passing with great devotion is how Krishna was ready to break his vow to protect Arjuna's vow, or to protect his devotee, and to protect Bhishmadev's vows too. So is very wonderful, Krishna's activities. So Krishna will protect the vows or the words of his pure devotee. He makes sure that they truth. And he will do things. So in this situation, now you see, this Brahmana for 9, at least we'll say if he tried to conceive a child 9 times, let's say 9 years or 10 years, you go through this period of conceiving a child every year, and every year the child is dying and or disappearing. In this case, the 9th one disappeared, the other ones die. This one disappears, sort of, poof, in the air right after. The other ones is explained that he will bring the dead body and put it by the door of the king. So Krishna didn't correct that. So that remains like that. But Arjuna, when he makes that promise, even though he made that promise in a moment of disconnect from Krishna, Krishna still protected Arjuna. And Krishna says that even if the devotee disconnect in such a way that does something abominable, Krishna will still protect. Krishna will still protect. The the, the important thing to understand on that verse, Apichet Sudurachara, is that our acharyas tell us that, a sadhu is not a durachar. A sadhu, a devotee, is not someone who will commit something abominable. It doesn't make sense. It's an oxymoron. It's opposite. If someone is a durachar, cannot be a sadhu. A durachar cannot be a sadhu. An abominable actor cannot be a saintly person. So, even in the case that a saintly person does something like that, that is considered durachar, but if this person is uncompromisingly remain connected to Krishna in devotion, then he still have to be considered saintly. So the remain connected with Krishna in devotion is the important factor. So then Arjuna becomes protected even as he disconnects. And we're going to see how Krishna correct the whole situation, not only save Arjuna from committed suicide, but also makes the words of Arjuna truth. Makes the words of Arjuna truth. And we're gonna see the whole purpose of Krishna. I don't know if it's revealed in the past and why the Brahmana have to go through all these tribulations. We don't know, but there's always a reason, and especially because Krishna didn't address the Brahmana's distress and relieve the Brahmana have to go through that. And, it's different from other narrations of Brahmanas who have to go through all these tribulations, Like, say, for example, the narration of the Avanti Brahmana, that is a very famous narration that Krishna tells Uddhava in the 11th canto. The one thing of the Avanti Brahmana losing everything, the family, all the riches, all his position, everything, and then being at the receiving end of insults. Everybody was insulting him, from his family to society. Everybody was just really not only insulting him verbally, but also physically. They would throw uh, stuff at him, even urinated in his pot, and things like that. So this Brahmana, the Avanti Brahmana, he came to understand that all of that was the blessings of Krishna to bring him closer. And he started to meditate on this verse that Krishna delivers in the Bhagavad Gita, is described and the verse is this one, the verse that the Avanti Brahmana meditates on. Yeah. It's in the 18th chapter, text number 33. He's saying, O son of Pritha, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained by the steadfastness, by yoga practice, and which does control the activities of the mind, life, and senses, is determination in the moral goodness. So he meditated in the determination that you have to remain connected in devotion with Krishna, which means yoga. Yoga means that link, that connection, steadfast and connected. And that's what Krishna says, that whatever you're going through that is circumstantially is what you have to go through by Krishna's arrangement. You remain steadfast. And that's the instruction, that same uh, realization that Lord Brahma had in the famous verse also in the 10th canto, chapter 14, text number 8, Tetenu Kampan, Shushushukmaninam, that uh, that while we're going to all these tribulations, the devotees see it like this, due to past karma, one patiently tolerates all these tribulations, while at the same time, with determination and steadfastness, one remains connected with Krishna in the process of hearing and chanting, dedicating one's life to hear, chant, and remember the pastimes of the Lord. And when one is able to remain like that, the mercy of the Lord is a right, is a right that we have. No one can take that away. So Krishna will act to protect. So Krishna protects Arjuna, because although it appears that Arjuna is disconnected, Arjuna in the heart is always connected to Krishna. And then at the end, his fame and his glory and the glory of Krishna will be perfectly protected and established. Any comments or questions?
Thank you for the class, Prabhuji. I was thinking a couple of things that I can share that helped me. I don't know how valid these things are, but the first thing I was thinking of is one time, we've heard it before, but I remember you mentioned to me about Boga and Ashwaya. Boga and Ashraya. How do you say it? Boga and Ashraya.
Yeah.
You know, trying to control and enjoy. That's one thing. And then also Prakriti and Purusha. So personally, for me, Krishna, the definition that Prabhupada gives is Krishna being the whole of existence. I can say personally, just thinking of Krishna doesn't really do it for me, because Krishna's energies and him, he's just everything and every. What does it for me personally is I try to remember not to try to control or enjoy, you know, like the Boga and Eshraya, where situations go certain ways, not to try to control it. If I even pick a flower, oh, don't try to enjoy it. This is for Krishna's enjoy. A simple flower, I can't smell a flower without offering it to Krishna. What's up with that? You know, well, Krishna is the only Purusha, the only enjoyer. That sounds kind of boring and like, man, let me out of here. You know, I can't enjoy. But that's the simple fact, is that we have one Purusha, which is Krishna, Shamasundar, the whole of existence in human form. And we have one controller, one enjoyer, one controller. And we are Prakriti, and he's Purusha, Prakriti. Don't try to control, don't try to enjoy. So that's personally how I try to meditate on those four things, more so than Krishna, because it's like inconceivable. But another thing is one thing that has helped me a lot is on YouTube. They have a lot of they have these people who have these past life or near death experiences where they actually die and go to these different places, and then they come back into the body, and they have these experiences where they were told that, hey, you signed up for this. You the stuff that you're going through was, you signed up for this for various reasons. And there's more to it, but I just wanted to share that little bit.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's a good meditation.
The response of Lord Krishna to Arjuna is that he shouldn't despise himself at the moment when he's about to enter fire to give up his body. So, the implication is that not being able to live or meet his duty to protect would then not entitle him to be alive. So the fact that Krishna intervenes means that there's inbuilt, I suppose, in Arjuna that his duty is being done to please Lord Krishna, because otherwise Lord Krishna would not appear to prevent him from giving up his body. So I guess it's an intrinsic part of even like performing duty, having the consciousness for whom you're performing it for. So in the long term, it would imply that giving up one's body is not actually really the correct solution, even for somebody exalted like Arjuna. So I'm just thinking about this suicide, despising oneself.
I think the way I understand it is, it's a special case with Arjuna, and it's because of that very strong loving connection that is between Krishna and Arjuna. And in some other situations, to uphold truth, then it may be allowed to do something like that. But in this situation, Krishna but at least it seems to me that Krishna is sort of more as a friend, more as a loving friend, sort of benefiting Arjuna. Because in the passage appears that Arjuna is not doing this for Krishna, is doing this because of, his nature. That's what we were discussing yesterday, that disconnect. Was not doing it for Krishna's pleasure. In fact, it was not registering that actually the whole situation was blaming Krishna in one sense, or some offense was being given like that, was being placed. So, but because that loving connection, Krishna is going out of his way to protect Arjuna. One, to protect Arjuna's promise. So because of Arjuna's promise, Krishna say, I will show you where the sun is. That's one of the things. I mean, he could have done that for the Brahman a long time ago, but he didn't do. He did with Arjuna because Arjuna was just about to commit suicide. And in one sense, and when he tells Arjuna is that don't worry about the infamy thing because it's not going to happen. In fact, these people who are sort of trying to disregard and talk about and insult you, like with and create this situation of infamy, they're going to be declaring our glories. Krishna will arrange everything, will correct everything. And at the end, it will be glorified because it's connected with Krishna. So I think in this situation is Krishna himself going out of his way to correct the situation of his devotee, which at the end we understanding that is all his pastime, his lila, for establishing not only his glories for us to hear, but also the glories of the devotees. That is so wonderful what he does for Arjuna. Because why? Because Arjuna, is the type of relationship that we have with Krishna. I mean, Arjuna's narration of when he have to face a separation from Krishna is devastating. The genuine sort of affection that he had with Krishna. He was inconsolable. So is there? I think that's the highlight. That's how I understand it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.